It's Playing Off the City, your sports news every Friday.
Welcome to Playing Off the City. Thanks for tuning in on this beautiful Friday in December. Hope you guys are having a great day. It's your host, Jake.
And Bakari, and we'll be covering your biggest stories from the NFL, NBA, college football, and soccer. We've got it all covered like always.
You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, and Apple Music at Playing Off the City. Today we have a special guest coming live from Warren, Michigan. Introduce yourself.
What's up, everybody? My name's Anthony Rosati. Some of you guys at WPHS might know me as Anth on the radio back in the day. But yeah, I'm here with Jake and Bakari. I'm glad to be here, talk about some sports, have a good time. So yeah, let's get straight to it, fellas. Let's do it.
All right.
Cracking.
Before we get into it, Anthony, is there anything you want to tell the audience about yourself?
Yeah, actually, I used to attend
sports?
Cousino High School, just like these two young gentlemen. I did transfer from Cousino High School for personal reasons, but yeah, I played basketball. I played football at Cousino as well. Really big sports enthusiast. These guys are great guys, and I'm glad to be here on the podcast today.
Yeah, no problem. All right, well, let's just get straight into it, guys. We're starting off with the NFL. Our first topic, the Lions are facing off against the Packers this week. Bakari, what's your thoughts?
The Packers are about to win. They're about to demolish them. I don't know what to tell you. The Lions are pretty much, they played good last week, Had a pretty good win with their new coach against the Bears. I think they scored a touchdown within the last few minutes of the game. But I think the Packers are going to easily take this game this week. They're playoff bound. I don't know what we really are. We're just kind of in the middle. But I don't know what you think.
I agree. The Packers are having a pretty good year this year. They're 9-3. Obviously, despite all of the challenges with COVID-19 and everything like that, it's kind of a lot for the players and coaches. And when the Lions are just being the Lions. Matt Patricia obviously got fired, which I know fans in Detroit are definitely happy about that. Aaron Rodgers of course, he's having a stellar year, per usual, honestly. When is he not having a stellar year? But yeah, as of right now, the Lions are almost the definition of mediocre this year. While the Packers are playing outstanding, they're definitely going to make a run into the playoffs. I would assume, maybe even possibly to the Super Bowl. They're going to make a deep run for sure. No doubt about that. But yeah, the Lions I don't think they're going to even I'm almost willing to say that they might not put any on the board. But Matthew Stafford, even with his torn ligaments in his thumb, has been playing decent. So I think Packers take it maybe by 2 or 3 touchdowns for sure.
Yeah, I don't think it's easy. I don't think it's fair to compare these two teams at all. There's definitely the more skilled Packers, and obviously it's been on display this year with the Packers 9-3. Aaron Rodgers is definitely an MVP candidate, so I think he's been having a strong, consistent play at the quarterback, and I definitely think the Packers are going to take this game by a few touchdowns. But overall, what are your thoughts on the season for the Lions, Anthony?
Like I said, I think they're pretty mediocre. Looking at the NFC North standings right now, they're technically in last place, even though they're tied with the Bears. They're not playing well at all. They're 1-4 at home. They are 4-3 away, but honestly, they haven't played well. The only reason the Bears were doing better than us is just because they went on a crazy win streak in the beginning of the season, and now they're falling behind. They're on a 6-loss streak, coming to that last-second defeat to the Lions last week. But yeah, the Lions look horrible. The Bears also look horrible. And right now, it's just the Packers sitting atop the NFC North. No questions about that. The Vikings are 6-6, so they're breaking even as of right now. But the NFC North is really top heavy, especially with just the recent years of the Lions and the Bears. They just don't play well, and we haven't had good coaching in Detroit. So it is what it is,
Yeah, I'd agree with you. We're probably the definition of mediocre, and there's been a lot of games this year. It's a common theme that we just had the lead going into the third, fourth quarter, but we couldn't hang on to it, which I think shows something about your coaching. Obviously, if you have that lead, you just got to hang on to it. So I think it was a smart move to get rid of Patricia. We'll see how that plays out in the future.
Yeah, and I'd just like to include the Packers are number 1 in scoring, and the Lions are number 31 in scoring defense. So,
Could be a high scoring game to say the least.
yeah.
Maybe the Lions will get a better draft pick next year that actually wants to play.
Tank for Trevor.
Tank for Trevor. I think the Jets have that one covered. I'm not gonna lie. They
Yeah,
with
I
that
think
man-to-man
so.
coverage in the last play, they were bound to lose. So,
Um,
not good. Not good.
All right, switching over topics, we're gonna talk some NFL postseason. Right now the season's coming to an end. I think we're in the week 14 now, right? 13 or 14.
Yeah,
We're near the
somewhere
end of
around
the
there.
season, so it's about that time. The playoffs are coming up. So, what's your guys' thoughts? Is there any team that stands out to you as a favorite for you to win the Super Bowl?
For me right now, I would say a pick that I would be kind of confident in would be the Chiefs. I mean, you have to. Travis Kelce just got inducted into the 99 club in Madden, so I mean he's one of the best
Yeah.
tight ends on the field at all times for both teams or in the NFL period. Patrick Mahomes, a stellar quarterback. He will probably go down if he stays healthy as one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. I would say the Chiefs for sure.
Definitely.
Possibly looking at the AFC standings, maybe the Bills, who are 9-3. They have a young quarterback, but I don't know if they can make a run deep into the playoffs just because they have a lack of an experience and they're just not
Yeah.
there yet. In terms of
Yeah, they're a team to watch for
for
the
sure.
future.
In terms of NFC teams, the Saints definitely they're 10-2 right now. They have an 80 or .83 win percentage, which is not bad at all. But I feel like, especially in this season, there's a lot of teams that can make a run out of a wild card spot or even out of a lower seed. The
Mhm.
Rams and the Seahawks are both 8-4. The Cardinals were on track to make it, but they might pull a wild card at 6-6. But yeah, I mean, like we were just talking about too, Packers at 9-3, Saints are 10-2, Buccaneers are 7-5. So there's a lot of potential for a shift in the bracket. There's a lot of different opportunities for different teams to come up big this year. So I don't know. It's luck of the draw, honestly.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
just like the Titans last year. I mean, talking about teams that could cause a surprise, didn't really see them going far, and then they started beating some big teams.
Mhm.
They beat the Patriots, I believe, last year. They beat the Ravens, I'm pretty sure, and they made
Yeah.
it all the way to the conference championship where they lost. But that was a really good run, to say the least.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think I'd have to agree with Anthony. That was my favorite standing with the Chiefs. They're just like a scoring machine. I don't see anyone that can keep up with them. Or, I don't know, I don't see any team slowing them down. But I'd agree. There's lots of teams that can make a surprise deep playoff run this year, especially due to the conditions with COVID-19. You never know who's going to get sick, what's going to happen. But most importantly, there's just a lot of talent out there in the league. So I think that'll definitely be on display this
If you guys
playoff.
had to pick,
For
if
sure.
you guys, sorry, if you had to pick, what would be a sleeper team that you guys think could make a run this year?
Um, So what do you mean
Like
sleeper?
a team that might be on the cusp
Like,
of
is
playoff or like a lower seed. Not anybody that's a favorite to go to the Super Bowl, but somebody that might just be a team that you think they'll make the playoff, maybe be on the cusp of it and get eliminated, but they could go all the way if they really buckled down. Who do you guys think that could be?
Honestly,
Um,
I would say maybe the Colts. Um, a lot of people have kind of been sleeping on them because they've had their ups and downs this season. But I think if things click at the right time, Philip Rivers, he has the experience. He knows what it's like to be in the clutch. So I think if it really comes down to it, the Colts could cause some surprises come playoff
Jake,
time.
who do you think?
As for me, I like a team in the Raiders. Obviously they handed the Chiefs their only loss this season, but I think they've just been playing pretty well this season. And I think that there's one of those sleeper teams. Another
Yeah, they could
team,
cause some surprises.
For sure.
another team. I know the NFC East was very, very bad, but I think the Giants are. I think they're a solid team. I don't think they could. Now, I'm not
I don't
saying
even
they're
think
gonna
they
go.
can make the playoffs.
I'm not saying they're gonna go deep into the playoffs, but in the first round they could shock someone if they fall asleep.
Definitely. I think for my pick, I would have to go. Well, one of these teams or two of these teams are in the AFC North. I would have to go with either the Browns or the Ravens, and here's why: the quarterback play from both of those teams can be, and notice how I say can be outstanding because Baker Mayfield, he's young, he's hungry, he can. I mean, he makes plays. He's simple. He's the better version, in my opinion, of Johnny Manziel. He he
sure.
plays his styles like Johnny Manziel. He's flashy. He's swaggy. You know, he plays with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, but he's just a little bit inconsistent. Now the Browns are 9-3. They're definitely. I think they're going to make the playoffs. I don't see how they wouldn't. They're on a 4-game win streak, and Baker Mayfield last week lit it up. He threw 4 touchdowns in the first quarter. So again, it could happen. It could not happen. I don't know, but I would have to pick the Browns or the Ravens just because Lamar Jackson, they have Hollywood Brown. Hopefully, well, Des Bryant announced that he was out for the season because of COVID-19, but we'll see who comes back. But yeah, I mean, the Ravens and the Browns are both a solid sleeper pick for me to make a run deep in this playoff this year.
Yeah, those are two solid teams. The only thing that scares me about the Ravens is it seems that many of the teams have figured out how to kind of defend.
Well, yeah, you just have to stop
Lamar
Lamar
Jackson.
from running. It's kind of a messed up system because
It's kind of obvious.
he's not always on target, and that's why
Most-
they're a sleeper and not contenders because Lamar just needs to figure out how to be more accurate with his passes. But once he figures that out, I think the Ravens are in for a big win streak coming up if Lamar can figure it out.
The inconsistency in his throwing game definitely shows. One comparison, my dad actually made this comparison. He said it's like Giannis. How all you know Giannis is gonna drive. It's the same thing with Lamar. You know what he's gonna do.
He's gonna run the football or he's gonna run a read option.
And as a quarterback, you know what you gotta do. You gotta pass the football.
Right.
So, I think if he develops that side of his game, he could be really good in the future. But I don't think he should be content with this kind of RPO, just run the ball every play kind of offense.
The only thing that is a positive outlook for him is that there are some one-trick ponies in the NFL. Michael Thomas, you know, his nickname Slant Boy. But he's successful. He gets a ton of receiving yards. He just broke an NFL record last week. I forgot what it was, but he's successful. And Lamar has the opportunity in front of him to be a very, very, very successful and a career quarterback in Baltimore. He just has to figure that last step out, and I think he can do it. I really think he can do it.
Yeah, I think he can too. It's just a matter of time. You know, they haven't really had the best of luck in the playoffs his first season or last season. But I think the more he develops, the more he gets used to it, and he figures out some more things to pull out of his bag. Just to confuse the defenses a little bit, he'll definitely be way better in the playoffs. And, you know, it's just kind of like in the NBA, you know, like teams don't really try on defense like in the regular season. So that's kind of why you see Lamar get away with things. But then once playoff time comes around,
things start to tighten up.
Yeah,
a little
exactly. Things start to change completely. Like defenses aren't just gonna let you score the way you want. Like they're gonna pressure you. So if they can figure out how to really, get that level above, I think they'll be straight. But for now, it's just kind of, I don't know.
Yeah,
man.
there's too many inconsistencies. I agree 100%.
All right, that was our NFL segment. Pretty interesting. Wonder who's going to make it, who's not going to make it. Make sure to keep watching the NFL to find out. We'll be right back after the break to talk about the NBA and the Pistons.
Never completely ready to adopt a teen.
For late nights writing English papers.
For your teen's music taste.
For dinners where they talk more on their phone than with you.
For the first time, they call you mom.
You're never completely ready to adopt a teen. And you can't imagine the reward.
To learn more about adopting a teen, visit adoptuskids.org.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back from the break. Thanks for staying with us. Right now, we're switching over topics to the NBA. We're going to be talking about the Pistons. Training camp just started a few days ago, and we've been seeing a few interesting things. One of the things that's caught my eye as a Pistons fan is the emerging role of Derrick Rose as a veteran to Killian Hayes. You know, we drafted Killian Hayes with the 7th pick. He seems like he's the future of our team. So, what's your thoughts about Derrick Rose's future with the Pistons, Bakari?
All I want to say is it's just so crazy how like we're already considering him a vet when it's just it feels like yesterday, you know, he was like going crazy, like before the injuries, he was going crazy on the Bulls and everything. I don't know, time just really flies. But I think coming back to now, I think he's a great leader, someone to look after, you know, give advice, what to avoid, like what type of plays to avoid, really develop these guys into like players they want to be, but also like since he's been there, staying healthy, staying at the top of their condition. And I think, you know, it's gonna play like a big role in people like Killian Hayes' career, just having that type of advice from someone like him. So I'm really excited, you know, to see them be like kind of like coming in and out during games and how that'll play out this year.
Yeah, I agree. I like what Derrick Rose has done in Detroit. He's definitely changed the culture. He's a great player. He was great before the injury. In my eyes, he's still great after the injury. He's almost back to an all-star level. He was a superstar, okay, and he's definitely going to be a Hall of Famer, no doubt about that. So having Killian Hayes under his wing is huge for Detroit because that just allows for so much more coaching. Because what people don't understand about basketball, especially, is so much coaching happens from player to player, and that's what makes teams and that's what makes players great. Is because when you're coaching alongside your colleagues and you're correcting your teammates, that's when people get better at the game. Not when a coach is blabbering about it, and not when fans are complaining about it, but when your teammates correct you and you guys hold each other accountable, that's when people become really, really, really successful, especially in the NBA. I mean, look at LeBron's teammates, right? When you have someone like LeBron, and I'm not the biggest LeBron fan, but when you have someone like LeBron as a facilitator and as a floor general, and he's coaching these guys up during the games, they're successful. I mean, he took a Cleveland Cavaliers team that was downright awful. They were a literal like train wreck, and that's an understatement of what they were. And he took them to the finals, and he won a finals with them.
Yeah.
His only other star, he had
Kyrie,
like
a young Kyrie.
He had Kyrie, but he had Kevin Love that's coming out of his prime. He didn't have prime Kevin Love. He had old Kevin Love. He had Matthew Dellavedova for a second, which was his second best player until he got Kyrie. He had nobody on that team, and he still was solid. So having that leadership and having that veteran, which I don't even consider D Rose a veteran, but having that veteran mindset and being able to coach up your teammates is what's going to be huge for the success in Detroit. And that's exactly what Killian Hayes is getting, and that's what all the other draft picks are going to get too. And I kind of like the moves that the GM did, and he brought in a bunch of experienced centers and good forwards, and those are going to coach up the draft picks, and eventually it's going to pan out. I know people are a little bit suspect of the draft, but I personally like what we did this
me
year.
too.
And I
agree.
think it's headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I think we made a lot of great moves this year in the draft, and I think like you touched base on it, Derrick Rose. I think he's seen the highs of the game, obviously, and the lows of the game after his injury, going through all that stuff. So I think he has a lot of experience in the league, and he'll be able to help Killian with the ins and outs. What were his keys to success? What are other guys' keys to success? Just to kind of build him into the best point guard of the future for Detroit. So I'm very excited to see that. I know you guys probably are, being Detroit Pistons fans.
Yeah.
Of course.
It'll be interesting to look out for. Switching over topics, we're going to stick with the NBA still, but more just like general NBA topics. Our first big news was Playoff P, as we know him, Paul George, just signed a $190 million contract extension to stay with the Clippers. So what's your guys' thoughts? That's a huge signing.
He doesn't deserve it.
Oh, I agree 100%.
What has he
He does not
done
deserve it.
in the last year that you sit there and you're like, oh yeah, he deserves that much money? He's getting paid more than Anthony Davis over the course of 5 years. Like, and Anthony Davis just took him and LeBron just took a team to the NBA Finals and won it. And
If I'm a Clippers fan, I'm sorry to cut you
No,
off,
you're
but
good.
if I'm a Clippers fan, I'm upset about that because think about all the cap space they just used up on a guy who not in the finals, in the semifinals, hits the side of the backboard on a wide open corner three. I mean, it happens, right? But like his shooting percentages were downright awful, right? And Paul George is not a bad basketball player, so don't get it confused. He's not a bad basketball player.
Oh, yeah.
He just hasn't been playing good basketball.
I just don't think he's a good player.
But even in the last
Right.
two
No, I
years, he
agree.
hasn't been playing good basketball.
See, the issue with me is I obviously don't think he's worth so much money, but everyone talks about how good he used to be, how good Paul George can be, but those like
Well, that's
Yeah,
the
but we're not
problem.
seeing
that's
it.
the
We're
problem.
not seeing it.
There's too many
I haven't seen that.
inconsistencies.
Like since
There's
he's
too
gotten
many
to LA.
inconsistencies.
Oh, you can go ahead.
No, I was just saying there's too many inconsistencies in his game. When Paul George is at his best, in my opinion, he's probably top 10, top 5 in the league, maybe. At one point, he was an MVP contender
Yeah, that's what I was
and
going to point out.
Defensive
He
Player
was-
of the Year.
Yeah. That was
But-
only like 2 years ago.
Last year, he did not play like that at all. I don't even think he was top 25 last year.
Yeah.
He played awful, especially in the playoffs. He played awful, and I get it. The bubble messes people up, but it was not good basketball. Even bubble or not, you got to play better than that, especially when you're at superstar level.
Yeah. Ever since he got to LA, I really just haven't been the most impressed with his style of play. I mean, he's shown in the past like that he can be a great player, but though I think those days have passed. I mean, I still think he's a solid player, but in no world do I think he deserves this amount of money. This is like near max extension. This is a lot of money to pay a guy who's
Yeah,
just
there-
been
yeah.
he's just been mediocre so far in LA. And I don't think I mean if you're Kawhi, as much as you like Paul George, I don't know how happy you are with that either.
Especially for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
That's a 5-year contract.
Yeah, and he's already
Yeah.
30
So-
years old.
Exactly. I don't agree with that contract at all, especially if he's playing at that level. He's almost coming into the point where he's going to start getting veteran contracts if they just sign him for a year or two and maybe do like a sign and release, kind of like AD had, like a player option almost, because he's not deserving of 190 million. It's just not. It's plain and simple. He's not playing good basketball. He's not making his teammates better. His teammates are leaving. Sixth man of the year left because he wants to do something better. They're not winning the games that they need to win with Paul George there.
Yeah, and
Plus his defense in clutch moments is awful. I get it. The
Literally.
NBA defense isn't good, but he gets mouthed almost every time. I have not seen this man block a shot that he's contested in a long time.
Exactly, and there was an article that came out a few weeks ago talking about how Kawhi and Paul George were like dictating the team, and they were calling when like they could have practices and stuff. Like that's not the type of person you want to be your leader. Like all they want is just to take all these rest days. Like that's what ended up. Like that's why we saw them crumble in the playoffs this year, because they always want to take these little breaks in the middle of the season. You know, they want to rest 2 games in a row, 3 games in a row. Well, those games add up, especially considering we had a shortened season this past season. That adds up, and that's the type of person you want to be your leader. Like, you're not gonna go far. Now, imagine if Kawhi leaves, I think they're screwed. Because I mean, I'm not saying LA's like not a good city, but not that many like big people are attracted to going to the Clippers when the Lakers are next door.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I agree.
They're in the same building, and they can't even win the games that the Lakers are putting up. Why would anyone want to sign with the Clippers?
Exactly.
They tried to form a super team, and they failed. Plain and simple. They did lose. They lost to, what was Denver, a 5 seed? A 7 seed?
3 seed.
3.
They were a 3 seed?
Yeah.
No. Either way, Denver was not supposed to win what they won.
Yeah,
Let's be
especially when
honest.
they were
Denver,
up
they were
3-1.
down 3-1.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Denver was down 3-1. I thought Denver was lower than that. I'm surprised they were a 3 seed, honestly. But
Yeah, I don't.
they were not supposed to win that, and they did. And that just shows super teams. I don't even like the concept of super teams, but that just shows that their super team was flawed.
Very.
And I think playoff P was the reason.
Yeah, I think there are a few holes in the Clippers system. In my opinion, I didn't really like the team they built last year. as much as I like Kawhi and them, I didn't think they could compete with the other team in LA. I think they were like, I honestly think they were just trying to be as much as they could. Like, they were trying to mock, or not mock, like mimic the Lakers.
You see, the thing is they built their team to beat the Lakers, like,
and they
And
couldn't,
they couldn't
even
even
get
do
there.
it. They
exactly.
couldn't even get to the Lakers.
They couldn't
So
get to them.
that's just everyone. Oh,
Yeah.
Paul George's gonna match up great. Kawhi's gonna match up great with LeBron. You can't even get past. I mean, not saying Jamal Murray and Jokic are bad. They're solid players, but they're younger.
But they're not at the level of
They're
LeBron
not.
and AD.
This season, they weren't at the level of LeBron and AD. I mean, it showed in the playoffs.
Yeah,
but-
showed in the next round.
Yeah, it's just scary as a Clippers fan. I'm not the biggest fan of this huge contract extension, and I think it could mean out for Kawhi because I think soon enough his contract.
Why would he
will be
want to
up.
stay? Why would he want to stay? There's
Especially
no
if they don't do
incentive for
anything
him to
this year.
stay.
Especially they don't continue to win. More people.
Exactly. He
The-
could go somewhere. He could even honestly go back to Toronto.
More
and be
people are
successful there. He
leaving.
was successful there.
Yeah.
Speaking of free agency, James Harden adds the Bucks and the Heat to the list of his trade destinations. How do you guys feel about that? I was taken back, honestly. He just got John Wall
And DeMarcus
into
Cousins.
Houston. Yeah, I mean he's got the team. He's got two best friends that came from Kentucky, and then here's James Harden. You know, and I think honestly, I want James Harden to stay in Houston because I feel like he's not successful with other players. He ruins other players' careers. Look at Russell Westbrook. Look at Chris Paul. Look at Carmelo. Look at who else went to Houston and left. They're
there's
just
been-
not successful.
there's
I'd
been a lot of
agree.
He
that.
I'd
ruined-
agree with the Harden.
There's a lot of guards that go there, and they just do not play well with Harden. And I think Harden takes a high volume of shots. He doesn't play great basketball. He doesn't play great defense. It's hard for me if I'm a point guard or a shooting guard and I have to go play with James Harden. I'm not happy about it.
Hmm. Yeah, I'd agree with you that Harden sometimes doesn't, as much as the stats would make it appear that Harden makes his teammates around him better, the volume of shots that he takes and the amount of time he just has the ball in his hands, it seems like he never wants to give the ball up. I think that makes the players around him not as successful. And I'd like to point out that as much as Chris Paul and Carmelo Anthony were once good basketball players, I think they're regressing when they entered Houston. So I think part of their lack of success was due to a natural regression. But with
True. I'm interested to see what they do now because once Carmelo left Houston, I feel like he played great in Portland, and I'm interested to see what Chris Paul does in Phoenix.
and I think the
I'm
issue,
interested. I think that's gonna be fun.
yeah, I think the issue with Carmelo mostly was him not wanting to accept that like 6-man role. He still wanted to be the star like he was in New York, and he's just not that player
He
anymore.
wasn't there. He wasn't there.
And as for Chris Paul, it just seems like you said, Harden and other guards don't get along well, especially guards that want the ball in their hands. If you give
Yeah, because
Chris
Harden's
Paul,
very ball dominant.
yeah, you give if you give James Harden, Eric Gordon, like you saw in the past, he'll be fine because all Eric Gordon wants to do is shoot the ball. He
That's
doesn't
what I'm
want to
saying.
touch
He,
it.
Exactly.
He'll make shooters better. Someone like Klay Thompson would be like a nice addition.
Mhm.
Like, well, the old Klay Thompson.
Yeah,
James Harden's almost similar to LeBron in that because LeBron likes to have the ball in his hands. James Harden likes to have the ball in his hands, but LeBron's not shooting the ball at the volume that James Harden does. So I don't know. It's still not. I don't know. I'm just not a fan of James Harden. James Harden's game. It's just not. It's not too appealing to me as a fan of the
yeah.
NBA. I just don't like. It's not enjoyable to watch
No,
personally.
I definitely agree. It's him trotting to the free throw line 20 times a game isn't fun to watch as a fan. But I do believe if Harden makes his way over to one of those Eastern contenders in Milwaukee or in Miami, I think that could definitely shake up the
Even
league.
possibly Philadelphia too. Don't forget
Philly,
about
too,
Philadelphia
yes,
or
I-
Brooklyn. He wants to be on Brooklyn.
I
but
heard that's on his
there's
list.
a lot of rumors with that as well.
I don't think
The-
going to Brooklyn would work out.
Yeah,
I don't either, but he wants to. So
the only thing I know is that the Rockets aren't going to sell Harden low. They're going to get as much as they can for him. So
it's almost going to demolish one franchise for him.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If he's going to go somewhere, they're going to milk it. for sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking if Harden has to go to a team, he has to go to a team like the Sixers, the Bucks, where they have like a big, like
Yeah.
somebody, that Giannis, Joel Embiid, that can, provide that, but not somewhere where like there's like a lot of guards that, would also want the
Miami?
ball. Yeah. So I don't see that working out like Brooklyn, Miami, where there's also like other guards that want the ball. But like if he goes to other teams, Giannis is okay with giving up the ball if somebody else is gonna score for him.
He
The
needs
only-
a scorer.
Yeah, exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like he needs somebody who can help him. So, or in Philadelphia. But if he's going to Philadelphia, you have to give up Ben Simmons because
Yeah.
that would never work.
That'd be interesting to see Ben Simmons in Houston. I think he'd fit pretty well there, especially with John Wall. That'd be interesting, but who even
Yeah, it
knows?
would be a very interesting thing.
All right, I think that wraps it up for our Harden talk. Moving on, the preseason is starting up soon as we near in to the start of the actual season. Tomorrow, as we're recording this, or today, the Pistons are playing against the Knicks in the preseason, the start of our 2-game preseason conference matchups. So, what do you guys think about the Pistons versus the Knicks?
I mean, it's the preseason, so honestly, I'm not taking it too serious. And plus, it's the Knicks, so we'll probably still end up losing because we're the Pistons. But I'm not gonna watch it, but I will be cheering from afar, and I hope that we kind of show out, and hopefully I can watch some highlights of Killian Hayes and some of the other guys we drafted on draft night, Sadiq Bey, all those guys. Hopefully they come out to play.
I think the Pistons will do well. It's the Knicks, like you said. They have like
Yeah.
a million power forwards. Their best player right now is like Julius Randle, so I'm not too worried about it. The Knicks do have potential, though. They just drafted Obi Toppin. Very interesting draft pick by them. I would not have chosen him if I was in their position, but hey. So I'm interested to see what the Knicks can produce eventually, but yeah, I think the Pistons take the cake on that one, no problem.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be interested to see how our young guys too. I'll definitely be checking out that game. I want to see how Killian Hayes takes up his role, probably as point guard, depending on if he starts or not, and other guys like Sadiq Bey. Who's a big dude?
Isaiah
we got?
Stewart.
Isaiah Stewart.
Stewart.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how our young guys do because we definitely. I mean, it's like we have a whole new roster. I gotta learn all these dudes' names now. No more familiar faces except for Blake, and who knows if he'll play, due to injury concerns.
We got a few names around the NBA. We got Blake, we got D Rose, we got Trevor Ariza now.
Yeah.
We have the small forward from Denver. I forget his name. And we have Mason Plumlee as well. Jeremy Grant. So yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see what lineup we run with, honestly, because there's so many players on our roster that I genuinely don't know how we're gonna fit them all and what's gonna happen. So I'm really interested to see. But yeah, speaking of drafts, honestly, I think that this draft was mediocre. It was okay for some teams. I think the Pistons did really well. It's kind of a controversial opinion because some people were really upset with the Pistons general management, but I think we did well. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm thinking we did good. I mean, our whole goal is to rebuild. So it was clear our intent with Troy Weaver, it was just to kind of get rid of the older guys, like some of the older guys on the team, bring in some newer guys, some fresh faces that fit the system that Dwayne Casey wants to build in Detroit. I think overall it was a W. I don't understand why other people are complaining. I mean, it's not like the guys that were here for years were helping us win either way. So why not just bring in some new faces and see if that helps us win?
Yeah, I feel the same way, honestly. I think that our draft was very good. It was very solid. And I think that other teams had some solid drafts too, but there was definitely some questionable calls earlier on in the draft. Looking, like I said earlier, the Knicks with Obi Toppin, definitely an interesting pick, especially where they picked him at. They drafted him
At 9?
with the 8th pick.
Or 8 or 9?
And I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't know about them adding another power forward. They already have so many big dudes.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about the recruit Denny? How do you say his last name? Avija.
Avija, yeah. Wasn't he number 9 to Washington?
He was number 9 to Washington.
Yeah.
I think he could be a sleeper, possibly. And this is a very big possibly. maybe a next Luca, not at
Mm-mm.
Luca's skill level. No. But like, there's definitely potential there. He's solid. He almost reminds me of the guy that the Bulls drafted.
At number
Denny.
4?
Hezonja.
Or
Not this year, but when Michael Jordan was playing.
oh
What's
yeah.
his name?
Oh, the lefty.
Kukoc, or how do you
Kukoc?
say his name?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I know who you're
Kukoc.
talking about.
Almost Tony Kukoc. That's it.
Mhm.
It almost reminds me of him. Like when I first saw the Denny, I was like, this guy reminds me exactly of Tony Kukoc. Like he literally looks the same. His game looks exactly the same.
Mhm.
He's like, I'm pretty sure they're the same height and same position. I literally was like, this is spitting image. So there could be a good player there in Washington. I'm interested to see what they do now that John Wall has left as well. I
Yeah.
think another steal of the draft was Cole Anthony at 15. He definitely is gonna shock the world.
I think-
He's impressive.
Yeah, he's a really good point guard. I think they need one over in Orlando. As much as Markel Fultz was their future for a while, I don't know how successful he's been. So I think a new, young, fresh point guard is good for them. And one thing that I would say about him dropping to, you said 15, right?
Yeah, he was at 15 to the Magic.
The one thing I'd say about that is I think injury concerns after he tore his meniscus last year.
I'm not sure. I think it was something with his foot or his knee, one of the
He
two.
went
But
down
it was
with a
definitely
knee
lower leg
injury in the season. So I think as a GM, when you're drafting, I think that's part of the reason that he was like passed up on, if that makes sense. Because I think there are some guys that definitely aren't as skilled as him, not as good a scorer as him, and I think he's just a crafty guard that'll prove. I think he'll have a chip on his shoulder now, obviously after being ranked so high all his life and now dropping to 15. But I think he'll prove to be a good player in the league.
Oh, I agree 100%. I think the Mavericks also had a good pick in Josh Green at 18. The Heat with Precious Achua, he's always a good pick. I mean, he was solid all through high school and through college. And Tyrese Maxey at 21. That was surprising to me because I thought Tyrese was going to stay in college for another year and then go really high next year. So within this
Yeah.
coming draft, Tyrese Maxey is a skilled ball player. I watched him when he was in high school. I watched him when he was in college. I think he will do very well for the 76ers. He's definitely going to be in the rotation for sure. He might creep his way into like a six-man role maybe, but he is solid,
He's
especially at number 21.
he's a good scorer. The only thing I'd say about him is his just being so young. It scares me, you know.
Yeah, he is a little bit young.
I
He
think
literally
he'll
is like
have.
19.
I think some games he'll be great. He kind of like. He's from Kentucky, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
He kind of reminds me of Tyler Hero. I mean, obviously not the same player. They're a little different, but Tyler Hero's a little longer. He's like 6'6", but they're both they can score when they're hot. But there's games you see Tyler Hero go 2 for 14. And you're like, what happened? So I think Tyrese Maxey could have those games. And this just comes with being young and being a rookie. You're inconsistent, but the more he gets comfortable, the better he'll play.
Yeah.
Two other interesting picks too was the 54th pick, Cassius Stanley. I'm surprised he went that low. Honestly, he came out of Duke. He was solid, but I think maybe he could have stayed another year. Again, he's really young and he needs to develop a jump shot, almost like Zion, really. And at 54, it's just an interesting pick. I think he should have stayed. And then with the 55th pick, the Nets drafted Jay Scrubb, and he got traded to the Clippers. He actually came from JUCO. He was at the number 1 JUCO in the country and got drafted at 55th, which was interesting. And I think that honestly could be a route for a lot of guys because some of these guys don't have the grades to go to big universities, and if they're good enough to play, they'll play.
Oh, for sure.
Same thing with James Wiseman. James Wiseman didn't get to finish his season at Memphis, and he still got drafted number 2. And there's dudes like R.J. Hampton and LaMelo Ball who went overseas. So there's so many options, I think, to make it to the league that it's a really interesting dynamic. And I think that if it's not so politically motivated and it's more basketball motivated, then kids will start taking different options to go to the league instead of going to college because they want to get paid. And it's not fair when they're at college. They're not getting paid for their. They don't get paid for their likeness. So I mean, they're putting their name out there and they're showing out for big schools like Duke, Kentucky, Michigan State, all these blue bloods. and they're not getting paid for it. So honestly, it makes sense to go a different route to go to the NBA. The G League, you can go, you get your school paid for, you make $500,000 a year, and you're playing professional basketball.
Yeah.
It's a great way to go.
There's
I think
a
that
lot
would
of
be
different
my way to go.
A lot of different paths to the NBA. You see it with all the different players. They have different backgrounds for their schooling. Some European players, some players, like you said, taking the JUCO route. So it's an interesting dynamic, like you said. But I think the more people who start to stray away from college basketball, I just don't know how great it is for the development of players. I mean, you saw with R.J. Hampton. R.J. Hampton decided to go overseas. He goes to the NBL, right? That's in
You talking about R.J. Hampton,
R.J. Hampton.
the future Nugget.
Okay. All right, Bakari. All right. We know you like your Nuggets. But as I was saying, he goes to the NBL. He starts off ranked like what, third in his class. R.J. Hampton was very highly regarded, and what, he's the 21st pick this year.
25th.
25th.
But to be
Or
fair,
24,
to be
25.
fair, this isn't his class. He went up a year because he was class of 2020 in high school, and this class was class of 2019 in high school. So, being fair, he still got drafted really high for being a grade younger and for going to the NBL. And look at LaMelo. LaMelo was class of 2020. He reclassed. He obviously hit a growth spurt, but still,
See,
he played like a beast. He was insane in Australia.
the only
And he was
issue
insane
with
when he did the Big Baller League.
yeah, the only issue with me and just taking the different paths is I feel like you don't get as much recognition from
Yeah, like
scouting.
publicity and stuff.
The
Yeah.
publicity, yeah, that's a good word.
Right.
I mean, people honestly they just forget about you unless you're like that like memorable. Honestly, I think the college game is a good showcase for many players, and sometimes I think people forget how valuable that is sometimes because as much as it's important to go make some money, I think that playing well at a college level is making that money for the future. I don't believe in the NCAA not paying their athletes. I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying I don't know. I don't agree with all these athletes trying to take different routes. But I guess we'll see how it plays out. I mean, I'm definitely not going to be going to the NBL. I'm not LaMelo Ball. So it'll be interesting to see how they pave a new path for these new this new group of players.
Oh, for sure. All right, and coming up after the break, we'll be talking about college, basketball, football. You know the deal. We'll catch you back in a minute.
To protect his family from disaster, Steve used his camera phone.
Done.
By taking pictures of his important documents, Steve can always have them stored online. Learn more simple disaster prep tips at ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
And welcome back from the break. That was a long segment. Anyways, so now coming up here we have Michigan. You know, they were scared of Ohio State. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm
man.
sticking with.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know about that.
So,
I mean,
There's been a lot of COVID cases in the program, especially in the Big Ten. I think it might have been a strategy move, though, because with the
they saw Michigan State. They was like, yeah, we don't want that. We don't want that.
Nah, not Michigan State. I think it's the fact that Michigan doesn't want Ohio State to go to the college football playoff. But the Big Ten is about to change the rule now, which is typical. They do that for Ohio State all the time. But, you know, I just think it's a little bit crazy that they're going to change the rule that fast, especially with this year going on, when it was already set in stone. It doesn't make sense. But, again, I mean,
It's Ohio State.
State is ranked number 4.
Yeah.
And it's Ohio State. So they always kind of – it's a football team with a school behind it. It's not a school with a football team. So that's just my opinion. I'm a little bit biased. I am a Michigan fan.
Yeah.
But
I mean, as a Michigan fan, I think if we lined up on Saturday, I think we were going to meet our maker, bro. It wasn't going to be good for us.
it was not going to be pretty at all.
We would have got dropped by, like, at least 40, to be honest. Like,
Yeah, for sure. They were torching us.
realistically,
No
they're
question.
just way more skilled than us, and it would have been all bad. But
Well, it would have
as-
just been a passing fest. They would have just been an air raid.
Yeah,
Michigan secondary is awful.
We saw how our corners did against Rocky Lombardi. And our corners haven't played the best this year. Our coverage hasn't been good. So Justin Fields, being a top quarterback in the nation, he would have had a field day. It would have been bad for us, to say the least. But
No question about it.
as for the rules, with them not being able to play in the Big Ten championship, I think it's fair for them to change it. I think they're the best team in the Big Ten. I think they deserve to be in the Big Ten championship. I think.
But if it was Michigan or Michigan State, would they change that rule? I don't think so.
I don't know. Are they undefeated? I think
Far from it.
Ohio State.
Oh, you talking about Ohio State? I thought you was talking about Michigan and Michigan State.
No, Ohio State. I think Ohio State's undefeated.
Yeah,
That's my only
they're
thing.
undefeated.
Yeah, I'm
Because
pretty
they
sure
haven't
they're
lost the
undefeated.
game, so why shouldn't they play? I don't know. It's a different year.
So
Bakari,
different rules, I guess.
What's your thoughts about Michigan, man? I know you got some strong feelings.
I mean,
Me?
before I
Oh,
start,
you don't want to hear. You don't want to hear my feelings.
I'm not biased towards any side. I'm in the middle. But both teams was garbage. Garbage. I don't even. Michigan. Didn't they lose to Penn State? Like,
Yes, bro.
what's going on? They was 0-5.
1-5.
Well, yeah, they was 1-5 after that game, but they was 0-5 going into that. How do you lose? Man, everybody had expectations of these guys going far, making a bowl game, doing something. I mean, the coach, Harbaugh, he been in charge for like 6 years. You was thinking, yeah, they about to go crazy this year again. I mean, they've been doing well the last few seasons, but no, it just, I honestly don't know what happened. Like, they've been doing pretty well the last few years, and then all of a sudden they come into this year, and then it's just like the Titanic, it just sunk. And it's just been awful this year. I expected better from them. Like,
Definitely.
I expected them, to at least be like some of the top 15, maybe even crack the top 10. But now they're unranked, and
I think only
it's
having 2 wins
disappointment.
on the season.
Yeah, it's disappointment.
Yeah.
I just don't even know how. You can't chalk this up to COVID. You can't say, "Oh, this is
No.
due to COVID-19." This is. There's no excuses for playing this bad, and I think it does fall back on the coaching because these kids are 18. Some of these kids come in there, they're 17, 18, 19. How do you blame those kids for errors that keep happening over and over again? If it happens one time, yeah, you can blame the player. If it happens a multitude of times over multiple weeks, and it's been compounding for the last few years, how do you blame the kids? Can't.
Yeah.
And I think we got to look at the coaching, but they're trying to extend the contract,
Yeah.
which doesn't make any sense to me at all.
No, I don't.
As a fan.
I don't agree with that. I think they definitely have to review Harbaugh's situation in Ann Arbor.
Immediately.
I don't think he deserves to be there. I mean,
He
every
just
year.
hasn't put up numbers he's supposed to put up. It's as
yeah,
simple as that.
definitely. Every year we
And
get.
I think a good candidate. I'm sorry.
No,
Go
every
ahead.
year we get not top 5. We get 5-star recruits. We get those big boys. I always hear about, oh, this class is great. This class is so good. And
Yeah,
then we
like they
go
always
out,
talk about them going,
And then we go
into
out-
the. Yeah, my bad.
and we lose to Michigan State, and then Ohio State. And it's like, at some point, it's not the players. If we're getting those recruits, I saw a stat, and it was like, we had just as many 5-stars and 4-stars as like Michigan State, Wisconsin, Iowa, like all those teams combined, except for like Ohio State, because they get big dogs. But we get those recruits. It's not a lack of talent. It's a lack of getting talent to play well, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think we need to look at our options. There's a coach coming from Ohio State, or not Ohio State. I'm sorry. Well, I mean, some old Ohio State coaches. Urban Meyer said he might want to come back, but I doubt he'll come back in maize and blue. But Iowa State, and he's a great coach, and he's done amazing over there. Look at what Michigan State has done with their coach from Colorado, who was not a good coach or a good program.
Yeah, he didn't have a
They
great
hired him
record.
in, and they play great.
Yeah,
So
and
I don't know. I
they
think we
exposed
can
two.
find our diamond in a rough.
Yeah, and they exposed 2 Big Ten teams. Like, everybody was going into
Exactly.
this season like, it was Northwestern, right? They beat 2.
Yeah, they beat.
Yeah, they was talking
Northwestern.
about Northwestern's that team. Michigan is that team. Michigan State's like, no. Let me show you. And then they exposed them. And then the only team that they didn't expose was the real deal. But
Yeah, Ohio State's kind of tough to knock off.
Yeah. No matter how good you are, I don't think you can
Yeah.
really beat Ohio State.
They're so good.
Yeah.
But a bright spot in the nearby future for us Michigan fans, we got that basketball program, and man,
Yes, sir.
5-0
Michigan
to start the
basketball.
non-conference season. That's pretty good, if you ask me. we had a shaky start against Oakland with the OT game, which probably shouldn't have went into OT. But since then, we've been clicking on all cylinders. Bakari, what were you gonna say? Sorry.
I was just gonna say, they haven't played anyone big yet.
I'd
You know,
agree.
that's no disrespect to them. I know they have a great program and they usually do turn up when it does come time to turn up. But so far, gassing it up, it's just, gassing it up a little too much too soon. I mean, yes, they're 5-0, but who have they beat that you're like, come March, oh, that'll be a team that's up there, They haven't,
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's hard for me to really give them enough credit until I see them beat a big team. But
Yeah, we haven't had a real test yet, especially after
I
our...
think we did last year when we played Michigan State with Juwan Howard and the recruits we had, and we still beat them.
yeah,
Especially with our Big Ten ACC matchup getting canceled due to COVID. That would have been a big proving ground for us, because usually those teams are pretty solid. But so far, I mean, we've just been playing MAC teams.
The only win that we have under our belt that I think is actually pretty outstanding is the UCF game.
Yeah.
Because UCF is solid.
Yeah, they were good.
They're solid. They're always a good program. They always go to the tournament. They always do well. We beat them 80-58, which that's a solid win. And now I'm interested to see as we go into Big Ten play here. We play Penn State on Sunday, and then
A Penn State team that just beat Minnesota.
Penn State is mediocre.
No,
but, I mean,
they're
still
a good team. They just beat Virginia Tech, who's
By 20.
21,
Yeah.
by 20.
20
So
piece
they're
too.
a solid team.
But yeah, as we move forward into after the new year is when we're really going to see a test of
Oh yeah.
what Michigan's made of. We have Northwestern.
you have Wisconsin on January 12th.
We have Minnesota on the 6th, and then Wisconsin on the 12th, and they're ranked 13 in the country. So Purdue as well, Indiana, and Michigan State, always solid teams, always.
Yeah, I think once we get around that time, then we'll be like, yeah, if they win those games, we'll be like, yeah, Michigan's the real deal. Michigan isn't the real deal.
Yeah,
But
that's definitely a proving ground for many Big Ten teams.
I think as they move forward, though, they're going to prove themselves, especially with Juwan Howard kind of coming into his own as a Michigan coach. I think he's a great pickup as a coach. He's done great in terms of recruiting. Now it's just we have to see what happens with those recruits. It's kind of the same thing with Harbaugh. You bring in the big guns, but you got to be able to use them. And as of right now, he is. Hunter Dickinson's putting up 14-8. He's got the lineup great as of right now. I like what he's doing. You have Zeb Jackson, who's going to develop. You have his son, Jace. Is it Jace Howard?
I think
That's at Michigan right now?
it's Jace. Jet's the
He has
youngest.
Jace Howard, and then his other son probably is going to come
Jet.
to Michigan. They're great. I mean, he's developing players. They're looking great. Isaiah Livers is playing great. They're
Hunter
all
Dickinson,
it's
a
just-
young guy.
Yeah, it's, like I said, averaging 14-8. They're playing really well, and I think as the season continues, as long as they can stay healthy, stay up to date, and stay fresh, they're going to keep playing well. Juwan Howard's doing a great job there in Michigan, and that's the bright spot in Ann Arbor, like you said.
Yeah. My only flaw I see in the Michigan system is a lack of someone like a pure scorer. I think we have a very good overall, I think we have pieces, but as for a standout end of the game situation, you need a bucket. Who are you giving it to? Isaiah Livers, maybe? Franz,
I'm
maybe?
giving it to Isaiah Livers. No questions
just-
asked. I'll give it to him. He's a bucket.
He's a
certified.
good player, but I don't know. His one-on-one skills aren't always the best. But
Well,
I think
he's not a guard. He's a forward.
no,
but
I know what you're
I'm
saying.
still giving him the ball.
But that's just what I'm pointing out is who do we give it to at the end of the game? That's just the one thing that worries me. But we are a team that plays very good defense, so we might not need
I mean,
that.
As of right now, his stats, he's putting up 16.2, 5.6 rebounds a game, 2 assists a game on 56.6% shooting. Isaiah Livers is playing great, especially coming off injury.
Mhm.
And for being a forward, those are really good numbers. Those
Yeah.
are solid.
Bakari.
And I think that he's going to continue to play well. But yeah, if I'm taking a game-winning shot at this point with Michigan, I'm giving the ball to Isaiah Livers.
Mm-hmm. Bakari, anything you'd like to add?
No, honestly, I think you guys got it pretty well covered.
All right, well then you want to take us into some Michigan State news?
All right, so going across the state, we got Michigan State.
That's pretty smooth.
Yeah. So their football season comes to an end this weekend. They ain't going to no bowl games, so it ends against PSU. We'll see how that turns out. What do you guys think of Mel Tucker's first season?
I think he showed glimpses of what he can do in the future. I think that he'll prove to be a great coach once he gets his recruits, once he gets his system put into place. But you saw he stepped up in a rivalry game, first of all, beating Michigan. And then he stepped up against another solid, highly ranked Northwestern, and he beat them. So I think he showed glimpses for the future that are signs of hope if you're a Michigan State fan. What about you, Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, Mel Tucker's solid. Like I said, he didn't do much in Colorado, but he's solid. I'm not the biggest Michigan State guy, but you can't hate on what he's doing up there. He's getting recruits in there. They're playing well. He just needs to find a quarterback at this point, but yeah, I mean, with what he's got, he's making it happen. And Michigan State's looking pretty good. I think within the next few years, they'll come into their own. They'll definitely start playing better. They'll get into a system. He's got a lot of old guys coming back to help out. I know he's made that a big point of emphasis before, that he's having older players and people always welcome to come help and give him a suggestion. So, yeah, I mean, he's doing a pretty good job as coach up there in East Lansing.
Yeah, and honestly, if you look at it, just quick comparison, who do you think, though both teams had a bad season, who do you think wins this season? Michigan or Michigan State for football?
Michigan State.
If we replay,
No doubt.
are you saying?
No, not the game,
No,
but
just,
just
like,
as
win the
season
season,
in
like,
general.
Oh,
Being
definitely.
like, which one had the more
Michigan State.
successful season? Michigan State for sure.
Especially
Michigan
because they were trending upwards, whereas we were trending downwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they beat us. Michigan State beat Michigan, and they've been up ever since. Michigan was supposed to win that game and they didn't.
Yeah.
And it only went down for Michigan from there, and it only went up for Michigan State. So
Yeah, I mean, we beat a few teams like Rutgers, and I don't even know, just some teams that don't impress me. So definitely not, as a Michigan fan, a very successful season.
Yeah, for sure. No, I agree. It hasn't been the best season for Michigan. We'll see how they bounce back, though, next year. Michigan State, like you guys said, I mean, it's an upwards trend. No one really expected much from them this year. I mean, if you were looking at betting sites and stuff like that, Michigan had the 21.5-point advantage over State before the game was even played. Like, everything was in their favor. Won that game. I know a lot of things were against them in the Northwestern game. Won that game. So, you take the little games like that, well, big games like that, and, you take from them, improve, and, you'll just look for next season, the season after that, to really cement your philosophy into these young guys and try to make some big bowl games.
Yeah, I definitely agree. As a note for the Big Ten basketball team, or not Big Ten, for the Michigan State basketball team, my apologies. Their game against, who are they playing?
Western Michigan. It was on Sunday.
Yeah, their game against Western Michigan is coming up soon.
They beat Western Michigan.
they
they
beat
beat
Western Michigan. They're
Western
playing
Michigan.
Virginia. Well, they were playing Virginia.
Yeah, got canceled.
Yeah, their Virginia Big Ten ACC matchup got canceled. All those Southern teams seem to be having a little more trouble than it seems like with the Midwestern states. But unfortunately, they won't be playing that game. It would have been nice to see another big matchup for Michigan State. I mean, they proved early in the season with a big win against Duke that they can be solid. So, Bakari, what's your thoughts on this program?
They look good. I mean, I don't want to say it's too early because they did beat Duke. I think that was a vital win for them. But again, it's still early days, you know. Still a lot of games to go. But I think that Duke win really kind of surprised a lot of people. Not a lot of people thought that Duke was just going to lose to them like that. I think on that night, both teams were really, not really bad, but they weren't playing at their best. But just Michigan State played better of the two teams. And I don't know. They have a lot of games coming up that are going to be tough for them. They have Rutgers coming up in a few weeks. They have Wisconsin on Christmas. It's going to be interesting to see how all these teams kind of play. In Michigan, how they play undefeated. Michigan State, how they play undefeated. But at the end of the day, both of their goals are March. You know, so we're not really going to be able to decide who's the better team, who's this, who's that until March. You know, who makes it to the championship game, who wins the championship, who wins the Big Ten. But as of right now, still early days. Michigan State looks exciting. Michigan looks exciting, and I can't wait to check out their seasons.
Definitely. It'll
In
be
my
interesting to
opinion,
see how it plays
the
out.
Michigan State against Duke game was not a huge win for Michigan State. And the only reason I say that is because Duke, as well as Kentucky, has not been playing well. And as you guys saw today, too, this is actually big news. Coach K canceled the out-of-conference games for Duke. And I think that goes to show what Duke is and what Kentucky is. And they're not – I don't know if I can say that they're not true blue blood because they put out great prospects, but they need fans there to be successful.
I just think their recruiting class wasn't as strong this year. I
But
just
still,
don't think they're as good.
The lack of
honestly.
fans, I think, is
I
a
do
problem.
think that plays. I think that plays not a huge role, but I think it still has an impact. Like, you have to acknowledge how important the fans and the atmosphere is. But I don't think that Duke is as strong as they have been in the past. Not a knock on Michigan State because they still won their game. They handled business. More a knock on Duke and I don't know their program.
The only reason I say it's a big thing for Duke is because at Camden, the fans are literally right on top of the court. Like, they're within 10 feet of the court. So not having that edge there where there's people screaming in your face, you can literally, like, feel the heat coming from the people in the stands on the players, and the players from, like, the people in the stands can feel the heat from the players. It's a dynamic that's important, and it's not there. And I think that really does affect the way that they're playing because having that energy and that fire from the crowd can sometimes be what wins you a game.
Yeah,
Especially like a big team like Michigan State.
definitely. Yeah, that's a big factor. And, I mean, hopefully COVID can come to, I mean, not an end, but it can start to look better in the future because I'd like to go to a college basketball game. I'm sure most people would like to see some college sports live. So hopefully that gets figured out.
Yeah, for sure. And that was our college basketball and football segment. We appreciate you guys for listening. We'll be right back for our final segment on soccer.
If doctors told us that we'd made a breakthrough on COVID-19, we would rejoice. We'd feel hope that we could live our lives again, get back to work, back to doing what we want. Well, masks are a ticket to that freedom. We can help protect others and save lives by covering our noses and mouths, which is how the virus mainly spreads. Until there's a vaccine, grab the breakthrough that's already here. When we're out, it's masks on. A message to help keep you safe.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
When you went car shopping, you meant business. You aced vehicle history searches and test drives. You out-salesmaned the salesman. Now you've got your wheels. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. With 401k tips and smart savings strategies, you'll have the info you need to get more for your future. Go to aceyourretirement.org because when it comes to speeding past financial challenges, you're an ace. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. Welcome back to our final segment on Playing Off the City.
Yes,
Thanks
sir.
Thanks for tuning in with us. We appreciate you guys.
Definitely.
Our first topic for soccer is sad. Soccer legend Paolo Rossi passed away today at the age of 64. He was a legend he was a big role in Italy's World Cup win in 1982. This is a crazy story. I'm gonna try to make it short, but what happened actually was he was in jail like prior to the World Cup that year, and I don't remember exactly why he was in jail, but he was in jail for committing a crime or something like that. And the president of Italy, he told everyone basically that if you win the World Cup, that you like we'll drop all the charges, like you can go home, because I don't think he had that much longer, but I just know that his sentence would have kept him in jail long enough that he would have missed the whole entire World Cup that year. So he lets him out and lets him come play in the World Cup. He finished the top scorer in that World Cup, and Italy won that World Cup. So that's just a little story for you guys. Rest in peace to him. Next is, it was a pretty exciting week in the Champions League. The Champions League just wrapped up the group stages. Now we're going to have the draw on Monday for who's going to verse off in the round of 16 come in February, because they kind of have a little break because of the winter time. But that's going to be exciting. It was a pretty interesting week. Madrid finally won their game. You know, they turned up for that game against Borussia Mönchengladbach, and they won the game to go to the next stage, finish first in the group, along with a bunch of other teams. Barcelona notably lost 3-0 to Juventus at home. Embarrassing, but we don't really speak on that. Now they have a possibility of firsting against Bayern Munich again, possibly. So it's either going to most likely be Borussia Dortmund or Bayern Munich. So I know Barcelona fans are really crossing their fingers that it's not Bayern Munich, because if you know anything about soccer, you know what happened the last time those two teams played. Now, and that was only in 90 minutes. So now imagine when it's a two-legged affair between a home and away. That is not going to be pretty, especially now that Bayern is a better team than they were then and Barcelona is a worse team than they were then. That is not going to be pretty. But stay tuned. Make sure to watch that on Monday morning. It's usually around 6 o'clock our time, 6 o'clock Eastern. So make sure to watch that. We'll definitely be tuning in to see how that spices up. Madrid, in other news, in Madrid, the Madrid Derby is going to be happening this weekend. Atletico Madrid takes on Real Madrid. Always a great game. You know, two big rivals in Spain, always competing for the titles. You know, Barcelona looks kind of far off this year, but these two teams are, I think, in the top four both respectively. So, gonna be interesting to see who wins this game. I think Real Madrid hasn't been playing their best this year. Atletico's been playing okay. So I don't really know. I think Real Madrid's gonna win, but like any rival game that you know of, Michigan State, you know, all those rival games, anybody can win no matter how good you are, how weak you are that year, because all those games come down to more passion than anything. And another derby that's happening over in England in the Premier League is Man City. The derby is going to happen, Man City versus Manchester United. Man City hasn't been playing great this year. Manchester United hasn't been playing great this year. They just got eliminated from the Champions League this week after a loss to RB Leipzig 3-2. It'll be interesting to see who wins this game for sure. I think it's probably going to be Man City. But Man United always causes surprises, as seen over the years with that 3-2 win a few springs ago. That'll be really interesting to watch. And we have my players to watch. I know you guys have been looking forward to that.
Yes, sir.
I always have my players to watch every week. This week, it's going to be interesting. You know, for the Athletic, I'm just going to give the games, people to watch in the big games this week. So Atletico Madrid versus Real Madrid. Definitely watch out for João Felix, the young Portuguese striker. He's been in excellent form as of late. He's been banging goals left, right, center. So make sure to watch out for him. He'll probably end up scoring another goal this weekend. I wouldn't be surprised if he did. So I'm excited to see him in action. In the Manchester Derby, I'm not sure. Honestly, I would say probably watch for, I think I've already said to watch out for him, but in this game, always watch out for a Kevin De Bruyne. On the other side, maybe a Bruno Fernandes, the Portuguese midfielder and the Belgian midfielder. Make sure to watch out for those two guys. You know, those are big difference makers in both teams. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, what team wins that game, because that'll be a very big boost in a long season. And we definitely have no idea who's going to win in England, because that championship is always very complicated year in, year out. So make sure to watch out for those guys. Those were my 3 people. That pretty much wraps up the show. We had a very long show today. Shout out to Anthony for coming on with us tonight.
Yeah, thank
Yes,
you
sir.
so much.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. I hope I can come back soon. That was amazing.
For sure.
Great
We'll have
job.
you back soon.
Great sports talk as always with the boys.
Mhm.
And yeah, make sure all you listening check out Playing Off the City. Make sure you guys check out all their socials. Make sure you guys follow them on everything. Definitely worth the follow. These dudes are great dudes. They put in a lot of time here, and I'm just glad to be a part of it. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate it. And thanks for sharing this experience with us. We've had a pretty long night, but I'm glad we got to talk sports. And if you're still with us now, thank you for listening all the way through. We know this was a longer show, but like we said, we had our boy Anthony on, so had a little more to talk about. But my name's Jacob.
My name's Bakari, and
And
thanks
my
for
name's
watching.
Anthony. I got you guys. Snuck it in there.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Peace out.
Peace.